The Arizona dust whipped across the empty highway as Elena clutched her infant son tighter against her chest. The diaper bag, all she had left in the world, hung heavy on her shoulder as she walked miles from the last town. 22 years old, a 6-month-old baby, and not a dollar to her name. Her life wasn't supposed to turn out this way. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as she approached the rusty sign, "Welcome to Copper Creek, population 843. Elena's parched lips cracked when she attempted a smile for her fussing baby. "Almost there, Mateo," she whispered, though she had no idea what there might hold. The small border town was just another desperate stop in a journey with no destination. Elena shifted Mateo to her other arm, wincing at the soreness. 3 days of hitchhiking and walking had left her body aching, her milk supply dwindling. The baby's cries grew more insistent. He needed food. She needed work. They both needed a miracle. Copper Creek's main street stretched before her, a handful of weathered buildings baking in the late afternoon heat. A gas station, a diner, a small grocery, and what appeared to be a feed store. Elena headed for the diner, hope and desperation fighting for control of her racing heart. The bell above the door jangled as she entered. The blessed coolness of air conditioning washed over her, and she fought the urge to collapse into the nearest booth. Instead, she approached the counter where a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and faded blonde hair pulled into a practical ponytail was wiping down the surface. "Excuse me," Elena's voice cracked. "Do you know if anyone in town is hiring? I can wait tables, clean, anything." The woman looked up, her gaze moving from Elena's exhausted face to the baby whimpering against her shoulder. Compassion and wariness battled in her expression. "Honey, when's the last time you ate something?" she asked instead of answering. Elena swallowed hard. "Yesterday morning." "But Mateo ate a few hours ago. I'm rationing what formula I have left." The woman's face softened. "I'm Donna. Sit down before you fall down." She gestured to a booth in the corner. "I'll bring you something." Elena wanted to protest, to insist she wasn't looking for handouts, but Mateo's cries were growing louder, and her legs felt like they might give out. She slid into the booth and buried her face in her baby's soft hair, breathing in his scent to keep from breaking down completely. Minutes later, Donna returned with a plate of eggs and toast, a glass of milk, and a cup of coffee. "Eat," she commanded gently. "We can talk after." Elena ate slowly, fighting the urge to devour everything at once. Her body trembled with relief as the food hit her empty stomach. She managed to get Mateo settled with his last bottle, his tiny fingers curling against the plastic as he drank hungrily. "Thank you," Elena said, meeting Donna's eyes. "I can wash dishes to pay for this. I'm a hard worker." Donna settled into the seat across from her. "What's your story, honey? You're a long way from anywhere with that little one." Elena hesitated. How much could she share? How much should she? "My husband Diego died 3 months ago," she finally said, the words still raw in her throat. "Construction accident. We had no insurance, no savings. His family is back in Mexico, and mine—" She looked down at her wedding ring, the only valuable thing she hadn't sold. "Mine disowned me when I married him. The landlord gave me 2 weeks, but I couldn't find work fast enough with a newborn. We've been moving from town to town since then. I just need a job, a chance to start over." Donna's weathered hand reached across the table to cover Elena's. "Copper Creek's not much, but we look after our own. Let me make some calls." The diner door jangled again, and Donna glanced up. "Well, speak of timing. That's Caleb Reeves coming in. Owns the biggest ranch outside town. Always complaining he can't keep household help. Too remote, he says." Elena turned to see a tall man entering, removing his dust-covered hat as he crossed the threshold. His face was sun-weathered, his dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to hard work and solitude. "Evening, Donna." His voice was deep, with a gentle drawl that spoke of years on the border. "Coffee to go if you've got it." "Caleb Reeves, perfect timing," Donna called. "Come meet Elena." Elena stiffened, clutching Mateo closer. She hadn't asked to be put on display, to have her desperation announced to strangers. Caleb approached their booth, his eyes a startling clear blue. against his tan skin, moving from Elena to the baby with careful assessment. He nodded politely. "Ma'am, preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us." Now back to the story. "Elena's looking for work," Donna said bluntly. "Good with her hands, needs a fresh start. That old ranch house of yours could use a woman's touch, and you mentioned needing help with the books since Maria quit." A muscle in Caleb's jaw tightened. "Donna, you can't just—" "I'm not asking for charity," Elena interrupted, pride flaring through her exhaustion. "I can cook, clean, handle accounts. I was studying business before." She glanced down at Mateo. "Before life took a different turn." Caleb studied her for a long moment. Ranch is 15 miles out of town. Isolated. Hard work. Not a place for a woman alone with a child. "With all due respect, Mr. Reeves," Elena met his gaze steadily, "we don't have the luxury of ideal circumstances. We need work, not pity." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. "The bunkhouse has a small apartment out back," he said slowly. "Private entrance, simple but clean. Previous housekeeper used it. You can have room and board plus wages. 3-month trial." Elena's heart leapt, but she kept her expression measured. "When would you need me to start?" "Got supplies to pick up, then heading back? You can ride with me if you're serious." He glanced at Mateo. "Got nothing for the baby, though." "I have what we need," Elena said quickly, though her supplies were critically low. Donna disappeared into the back and returned with a small bag. "Some formula, diapers, and baby food I keep for my grandkids when they visit. Should tide you over." The kindness nearly broke Elena's carefully maintained composure. "I'll pay you back," she promised. "You help Caleb get that house in order, we'll call it even," Donna replied with a wink. "He's been a disaster since his wife passed. 5 years now, isn't it, Caleb?" The rancher's face closed off. "Going on 6, he said shortly. "I'll be at the feed store for 20 minutes, then the truck's heading out. Your choice, ma'am." After he left, Elena turned to Donna. Is it safe? For Mateo and me?" Donna squeezed her hand. "Caleb Reeves is the most honorable man in 3 counties. Gruff as a bear, and about as talkative, but decent to his core. Ranch has been in his family for generations. He's got a daughter too, Lily. About 8 now. Sweet child, but running wild since her mama died. Might do her good to have another woman around." 20 minutes later, Elena found herself climbing into a battered pickup truck, Mateo secured against her chest in a makeshift sling. The truck bed was loaded with feed bags, hardware supplies, and groceries. She had made her decision. What choice did she really have? The drive was mostly silent, save for Caleb's occasional comments about landmarks or ranch boundaries. Elena tried to take it all in. The vast expanse of mesquite and desert scrub, the distant mountains shimmering in the late afternoon heat. So different from the crowded neighborhoods of Phoenix where she'd grown up, or the small apartment she'd shared with Diego in Tucson. "Ranch house is just over that ridge," Caleb finally said, breaking a long silence. "Been in my family 4 generations. Not much to look at, but it's home." As they crested the hill, Elena caught her breath. The sprawling ranch house sat nestled against a backdrop of red rock formations, surrounded by several outbuildings, corrals, and a large barn. A windmill turned lazily next to a water tank, and several horses grazed in a nearby pasture. It wasn't grand, but it had a weathered dignity that spoke of endurance. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. Caleb glanced at her, surprise flickering across his features before he returned his eyes to the dirt road. Functional is what it is. Needs work, like everything else around here. As they pulled up to the house, a small figure burst through the front door. A girl with wild, dark hair flying behind her, wearing dusty jeans and a faded t-shirt. "Dad, you're late. Mrs. Jimenez had to leave already. She said to tell you her son needed her back in town and she couldn't." The girl stopped short when she spotted Elena and the baby. "Who are they?" Caleb cut the engine and sighed. "Lily, this is Elena and her son Mateo. Elena's going to be helping around the house and with the books." "Elena, this is my daughter Lily." The girl approached cautiously, curiosity warring with suspicion on her small face. She had her father's startling blue eyes, standing out against her olive skin and dark hair, a striking combination. "How old is he?" Lily asked, peering at the bundle in Elena's arms. 6 months, Elena answered, adjusting the sling so Lily could see Mateo's face. The baby had fallen asleep during the drive, his long lashes resting against his round cheeks. "He's really small," Lily observed. "He was born early," Elena explained, "but he's growing stronger every day." Lily nodded solemnly, then turned back to her father. "Mrs. Jimenez didn't make dinner. She said there's leftover stew in the fridge." Caleb ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "Go on inside, Lily. I'll show Elena to the apartment, then we'll figure out dinner." The apartment behind the bunkhouse was indeed small, just one room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a bed, but it was clean and solid. A small window overlooked a garden that had seen better days, and beyond that, the vast expanse of the ranch. "It's not much," Caleb said, setting down the bag Donna had given her along with a small box of groceries he'd purchased in town. "But it's private. Bunkhouse is empty most of the time. Just use it when we have extra hands during calving or roundup." "It's perfect," Elena said, meaning it. After weeks of shelters and cheap motels when she could afford them, this small space felt like a palace. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Reeves." "Caleb," he corrected. "We're not formal here. Ranch hands start at sunrise. House duties are yours to schedule as you see fit, but Lily needs someone here when she gets back from the school bus. Previous arrangement was cooking, cleaning, laundry, and keeping the books up to date. Computers in the office in the main house." Elena nodded, mentally cataloging the responsibilities. "I understand. And Lily, what are your expectations there?" Something complicated crossed Caleb's face. She's had a rough go since her mother died. She's a good kid, just untethered, needs consistency, structure, things I'm not always able to provide with the demands of the ranch. "I'm not looking to replace anyone," Elena said carefully, "but I'm happy to help however I can." Caleb studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Get settled. Come up to the house when you're ready, and we'll sort out dinner." After he left, Elena finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. She laid Mateo gently on the bed, surrounding him with pillows to keep him from rolling off, and sank down beside him. "We made it, Majo," she whispered, brushing a finger against his soft cheek. "Not where we expected to be, but we're safe. For now, that's enough." When she entered the main house 30 minutes later, having washed her face and changed Mateo's diaper, Elena found chaos. Lily was attempting to reheat stew on the stove, spilling more than she stirred, while Caleb was simultaneously trying to unpack groceries and answer a call on an ancient landline phone, his expression growing darker by the second. "No, Jenkins, I can't just—" "Listen, that fence line dispute isn't—" He caught sight of Elena and an expression almost like relief crossed his face. "I have to call you back." He hung up without waiting for a response. Elena set Mateo's carrier on the kitchen table and moved to the stove, gently taking the wooden spoon from Lily's hand. "May I?" she asked. Lily relinquished it with surprising willingness. "It's stuck to the bottom." "We can fix that," Elena said, adjusting the heat and adding a splash of water from a nearby pitcher. "Do you like cooking, Lily?" The girl shrugged but remained close, watching Elena's movements. "Mom used to let me help. Dad burns everything." "I heard that," Caleb muttered, but there was no heat in his words. He finished putting away the groceries, then approached Mateo's carrier with cautious interest. The baby was awake now, blinking up at the unfamiliar ceiling. "He looks like you," Caleb observed. "He has his father's eyes," Elena replied softly. "Same warm brown. Diego used to say they were the color of good earth, the kind that grows things." An uncomfortable silence fell, broken only by the sound of the wooden spoon against the pot, as Elena rescued their dinner. "Dad says you're going to fix the books," Lily said finally. "What does that mean? Are they broken?" Elena smiled. "It means I'll help organize the ranch finances. Money coming in, money going out. Make sure everything balances." "Can you really do that?" Lily asked, skepticism clear in her voice. I was studying accounting before. Elena paused, choosing her words carefully. Before I became a mother. I had to put school on hold, but yes, I understand bookkeeping. Mom used to do all that stuff, Lily said, her voice small. Dad's terrible at it. Still right here, hearing everything, Caleb said dryly, but Elena caught the flash of grief in his eyes. The meal that followed was awkward, but not unpleasant. Lily peppered Elena with questions about Mateo. How big was he when he was born? When did he start smiling? Could he sit up by himself yet? Elena answered patiently, grateful for the girl's curiosity rather than resentment. Caleb remained largely silent, but Elena noticed how his eyes tracked his daughter's animated gestures, how he seemed to relax slightly as the meal progressed. There was love there, even if he wasn't quite sure how to express it. After dinner, when Lily had been sent to finish homework and get ready for bed, Caleb and Elena sat at the kitchen table, Mateo dozing in his carrier between them. I should warn you, Caleb said, turning a coffee cup between his hands. The ranch is struggling. Droughts hit us hard 3 years running. Cattle prices are down. I'm not sure how long I can guarantee work. Elena appreciated his honesty. I understand. I'm not looking for guarantees, just a chance to rebuild, to give Mateo stability, even if it's temporary. Caleb's eyes met hers, and something passed between them. A recognition of shared struggle, perhaps. What happened to his father, if you don't mind my asking? Elena looked down at her sleeping son. Construction accident. Scaffolding collapse. Diego was working overtime, taking every shift he could after Mateo was born premature. The hospital bills. She swallowed hard. He was a good man. Worked himself to exhaustion providing for us. I'm sorry, Caleb said simply. The company denied responsibility. No insurance, no compensation. By the time Mateo was released from the hospital, I couldn't afford our apartment. We've been moving ever since, staying wherever we could. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. My wife, Anna, died of cancer. It spread so fast. By the time they caught it, there wasn't much they could do. Lily was just 3. I'm sorry. Elena echoed his earlier words, meaning them. He nodded once, acknowledgement of shared pain. It's been just us since then. Series of housekeepers, ranch hands coming and going. Not much stability for a growing girl. His eyes found Mateo again, then moved to Elena's face. Stay, he said, the word coming out rough, almost reluctant. Not just for the job. This little one needs stability. You both do. And, frankly, so does Lily. The directness of his statement caught Elena off guard. This wasn't charity being disguised as employment. This was a man recognizing a mutual need. I'm not looking for complications, she said carefully. My priority has to be Mateo. As it should be, Caleb agreed. I'm not offering complications. Just a fair exchange. You bring some order back to this house, help with Lily, keep the books straight. In return, you and your boy have a safe place to land. Simple as that. Elena studied him, trying to read behind the weathered face and guarded eyes. There were 1,000 reasons to be wary, to protect herself and Mateo from further disappointment. But there was something solid about Caleb Reeves, a steadiness that had become rare in her tumultuous life. 3 months, she agreed finally. We'll see how it goes. Caleb nodded once decisively. Sunrise comes early. I'll show you the office and the books tomorrow after breakfast. As Elena carried Mateo back to their small apartment that night, the vast desert sky opening above them in a blanket of stars, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. The tentative stirring of hope. Not a grand vision of happiness, but something more fundamental. The possibility that they might stop running, might find solid ground again. The Arizona wind whispered across the ranch, carrying the scent of dust and sage and new beginnings. Elena held her son closer, offering him the only promise she could. We'll try, mijo, she whispered into the quiet night. For both of us, we'll try. Elena woke before dawn, her body still conditioned to Diego's early construction shifts. For a moment, she forgot where she was, the unfamiliar shadows of the small apartment confusing her sleep-addled mind. Then Mateo stirred in the makeshift crib Caleb had brought over last night, a wooden apple crate lined with soft blankets, and reality settled back into place. They were at Reeves Ranch, 15 miles from Copper Creek, starting over again. She moved quietly, heating a bottle for Mateo while the coffee brewed. Through the small window, she watched the ranch come alive with the first tentative rays of sunlight. Caleb was already outside, his tall figure moving between the barn and the corral, breath visible in the cool, morning air. In the distance, cattle dotted the landscape like smudges against the awakening desert. By the time Elena crossed the yard to the main house, Mateo balanced on her hip. The sun had cleared the horizon. She paused, momentarily struck by the beauty of it. The way the light painted the red rocks gold, how it transformed the dusty landscape into something almost magical. It had been so long since she'd had the luxury of noticing beauty. The kitchen door opened before she could knock, and Lily appeared, still in pajamas, her dark hair a wild tangle around her face. "Dad said to let you in if you came," she announced, stepping aside. "He's finishing chores. We're having cereal because nobody went shopping for eggs." Elena smiled at the girl's matter-of-fact tone. "Good morning to you too, Lily. Would you like me to make something besides cereal?" Lily shrugged, but her eyes tracked Elena's movements with interest as she set Mateo's carrier on the table. "What can you make?" "With what's in the kitchen?" "Let me see." Elena did a quick inventory of the surprisingly well-stocked pantry. "How about pancakes? Quick, easy, and I think your dad could use a good breakfast after being up since dawn." A smile flickered across Lily's face. "Dad likes pancakes. Mom used to make them shaped like horses sometimes." Elena felt the familiar pang that came with these mentions of Anna Reeves, the woman whose absence defined this household as surely as Diego's absence defined Elena's life. "I'm not very good at horse shapes," she admitted, "but I can try if you'd like." To her surprise, Lily shook her head. "That was Mom's thing. You can make regular ones." By the time Caleb stomped his boots on the porch and entered through the kitchen door, Elena had pancakes staying warm in the oven, coffee freshly poured, and Mateo contentedly gumming a soft teething toy in his carrier. Lily was setting the table, following Elena's gentle instructions with minimal resistance. Caleb stopped in the doorway, his expression unreadable as he took in the domestic scene. "You didn't have to cook," he said finally. "It's part of the job," Elena replied simply. "And Lily was telling me you like pancakes." Was she now? He raised an eyebrow at his daughter, who suddenly became very interested in perfectly aligning the forks beside the plates. They ate mostly in silence, but it was a different quality of silence than the previous night. Less strained, more comfortable. Occasionally, Lily would ask a question or make an observation that revealed more about the ranch's rhythms and routines. "Mrs. Jimenez never made pancakes," she informed Elena. "She made eggs every day, even though I told her I don't like them runny. The school bus comes at 7:30, she added later. "Sometimes Dad forgets and I miss it." "That happened once," Caleb muttered into his coffee cup. "Twice," Lily corrected. "And then, there was the time you thought it was Saturday but it was actually Tuesday." Elena hid her smile at Caleb's exasperated expression. Clearly, Lily had inherited her father's forthright manner, if not his tendency towards silence. After breakfast, while Lily got ready for school, Caleb showed Elena the office, a small room off the living area that looked as though a filing cabinet had exploded inside it. Papers covered every surface, receipts were stuffed into cubbyholes, and the ancient desktop computer was buried under a stack of mail. Anna was organized, Caleb said, a hint of defensiveness in his tone. "After she passed, I tried to keep up with it, but with the ranch and Lily—" "It's all right," Elena assured him. "I can sort this out. It may take a while, but I've seen worse." This was a lie, but a kind one. "Ranch runs on thin margins," he continued. "Need to know where we stand with the bank, with suppliers. Can't make decisions flying blind." Elena nodded, already mentally cataloging what needed to be done. "I'll start today. May I ask, how are you currently paying bills? Managing payroll?" A grimace crossed Caleb's face. "Neighbor's boy comes over once a month. Helps me make sense of the most urgent matters. Rest just, he gestured at the chaos, piles up. I understand. Don't worry, Mr. Reeves. Caleb, he corrected again. Caleb, she amended. Accounting is actually something I'm good at. I'll have this organized within a week, and then we can see where things stand. He studied her for a moment, then nodded once. Appreciate it. I'll be in the south pasture most of the day. Cell reception's spotty, but the landline rings in the barn if there's an emergency. After Lily left for school and Caleb headed out to the pastures, Elena found herself alone in the big ranch house. She settled Mateo on a blanket in the office doorway where she could see him and began the daunting task of bringing order to chaos. By mid-morning, she had created distinct piles: bills to be paid, invoices from cattle sales, receipts for equipment repairs, bank statements. The picture emerging wasn't pretty. Reeves Ranch was operating in the red, with more money going out than coming in. The drought Caleb had mentioned had clearly taken a severe toll on his cattle operation. Elena's heart sank as she uncovered a letter from the bank, dated just 2 weeks earlier, regarding a missed mortgage payment. It wasn't the first, according to the stern language of the notice. The ranch that had been in the Reeves family for generations was at risk. Your daddy wasn't exaggerating, she murmured to Mateo, who was happily batting at a stuffed horse Lily had shyly offered before leaving for school. This place is running on borrowed time. Elena worked through lunch, stopping only to feed and change Mateo. She managed to create a rudimentary spreadsheet of income and expenses for the past 6 months, confirming her initial impression. Unless something changed, Reeves Ranch wouldn't survive another year. She was so absorbed in her work that she nearly missed the sound of the school bus rumbling up the driveway at 3 o'clock. Quickly gathering Mateo, she headed outside to meet Lily, remembering Caleb's emphasis on providing stability for his daughter. Lily hopped off the bus with the boundless energy of an 8-year-old, but her expression turned guarded when she spotted Elena waiting. Where's Dad? Still working in the south pasture, Elena explained. He said he'd be back before dinner. I thought maybe you could show me around the ranch while we wait. I've been inside all day with the paperwork. Lily considered this, suspicion warring with the natural desire to show off her knowledge. Knowledge won out. Okay, but we have to take Mateo. It's too hot to leave him inside. Elena smiled. Of course. Let me get his sun hat and we'll go. What followed was a surprisingly comprehensive tour of Reeves Ranch, narrated by Lily with all the authority her 8 years could muster. She showed Elena the barn with its neat tack room. Dad says everything has a place, even if he never puts things back in them. The chicken coop where 6 hens scratched and pecked. Their names are all Henrietta because I can't tell them apart. And the small vegetable garden that had clearly seen better days. Mom used to grow tomatoes and corn and zucchini, but now we just have weeds. Throughout the tour, Elena noticed how Lily's stories always circled back to her mother. The greenhouse Anna had planned to build, the flowers she had planted around the front porch, now withered from neglect, the recipe book she had kept in the kitchen. The girl's memories were still vivid, her grief still palpable beneath her matter-of-fact exterior. And that's the creek, Lily said finally, pointing to a dry stream that cut across the property. It used to have water all the time when Mom was alive, but Dad says the drought dried it up. He says it'll come back someday, but I think he's just saying that to make me feel better. Elena shifted Mateo to her other hip, studying the cracked earth where water had once flowed. Sometimes things that seem dead are just waiting for the right conditions to come back to life, she said quietly. The water is still there, underground, waiting. Lily gave her a skeptical look. That's what grown-ups say when they don't want to admit something's gone forever. The brutal honesty of the child's assessment caught Elena off guard. Before she could respond, the sound of an approaching truck drew their attention. Caleb was returning, dust billowing behind his pickup as it bounced down the dirt road toward the house. We should head back, Elena said. It's getting close to dinner time. Lily nodded but paused before turning away from the dry creek bed. Do you really believe things can come back after they're gone? She asked, her voice small. Elena thought of Diego, of the future they had planned together, of the dreams that had died with him. Not everything, she admitted. But some things just need time and care to find their way back. Lily seemed to accept this compromise, falling into step beside Elena as they walked back toward the house. "Dad doesn't know how to cook spaghetti right," she announced after a moment. "He always makes the noodles soggy." Elena laughed, grateful for the child's resilience. "Well, it just so happens that spaghetti is one of my specialties. Should we make that for dinner?" Quote. Lily's face lit up with a genuine smile. The first Elena had seen. "Can I help? I'm counting on it. Someone needs to show me where everything is kept." That evening, as Caleb cleaned up after dinner, Elena had insisted she cooked, he cleaned. Lily sat at the kitchen table with Elena, ostensibly working on homework, but mostly watching as Elena balanced Mateo on her lap while reviewing the ranch accounts on a notepad. "Is the ranch in trouble?" Lily asked suddenly. Elena looked up, startled by the directness of the question. "What makes you ask that?" Lily shrugged, pushing her math workbook away. "Dad gets quiet when he looks at the mail. And he sold some of Mom's horses last year. He said it was because we didn't need so many. But I heard him talking to Uncle Mike about making payments." Children, Elena thought, absorb far more than adults give them credit for. "Ranching is always challenging," she said carefully. "The drought has made things harder. Are we going to lose the ranch?" Lily's blue eyes, so like her father's, were suddenly vulnerable, the brave facade cracking to reveal the worried child beneath. "Your dad is working very hard to make sure that doesn't happen," Elena said, wishing she could offer more concrete reassurance. "And I'm going to help him get the paperwork sorted out so he can make good decisions." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. "Good. Because this is our home. Mom is buried on the hill behind the house, and she'd be sad if we had to leave her." Elena's heart constricted. She hadn't known that Anna Reeves was buried on the property, though it made sense, given the ranch's history and isolation. "Your dad loves this place very much," she said softly, "and he loves you even more." "I know," Lily said matter-of-factly. "He's just not very good at saying it. Mom said he keeps his feelings in a box inside his heart, and sometimes the key gets stuck." Elena couldn't help but smile at the image. That's a good way of putting it. After Lily went to bed, Elena found Caleb on the front porch, staring out at the darkening landscape. She hesitated in the doorway, Mateo sleeping against her shoulder, unsure if her presence would be welcome. "You can join me," he said without turning around. "I don't bite." Elena settled into the rocking chair beside him, carefully adjusting Mateo so he wouldn't wake. "It's peaceful out here." Caleb nodded, his profile outlined against the last traces of sunset. "It's why I could never live in town. Need space. Need quiet." They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the creak of Elena's rocking chair and the distant call of a coyote. "I found the bank notices," Elena said finally, deciding directness was the best approach. "And I've started to get a picture of the ranch finances." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't seem surprised. "Figured you would. It's not pretty." "No," she agreed. "But it's not hopeless either. The fundamental issue seems to be cash flow, not overall value. The ranch itself is still worth something, even with the drought." He turned to look at her then, surprise evident in his expression. "Most people would run screaming after seeing those numbers." "I'm not most people," Elena said simply. "And I have nowhere to run to anyway." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Fair enough. If you're willing to consider some changes," she continued, "I think there might be ways to diversify the ranch income. Reduce dependence on cattle prices. Such as, I noticed you have quite a bit of frontage on the main road. And those red rock formations on the eastern boundary are stunning. Have you ever considered leasing a small section for a campground? Or offering guided trail rides?" Caleb's immediate frown told her what he thought of these suggestions. "This is a working cattle ranch, not a tourist trap." "It can be both," Elena countered gently. A lot of ranches are supplementing their income with agritourism. It doesn't have to change the character of the place. Anna suggested something similar, he admitted after a moment. Never got around to it. Always seemed like selling out somehow. It's not selling out to adapt, Elena said. It's surviving. For Lily. For the legacy this place represents. Caleb was quiet for a long time, considering her words. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Lily told you about Anna? Being buried here? Elena nodded. She mentioned it this afternoon. Family plot's been here since my great-grandfather's time. 4 generations of Reeves, resting on that hill. He took a deep breath. Never thought I'd be the one to lose it all. You haven't lost it yet, Elena reminded him. And you don't have to do this alone. Let me help. He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Why? Why would you care about saving a stranger's ranch? Elena considered her answer carefully. Because you offered us shelter when we had nowhere else to go. Because Lily deserves to grow up in her home. And because... She looked down at Mateo, sleeping peacefully against her. Because I understand what it means to fight for something that matters, even when the odds seem impossible. Something shifted in Caleb's expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. All right, he said finally. We'll try it your way. See if we can't save this old place. The following weeks fell into a rhythm. Elena gradually brought order to the ranch's financial chaos, creating proper books, setting up payment schedules, and developing a clearer picture of their situation. It was dire but not beyond salvaging, especially after she negotiated a revised payment plan with the bank. Caleb, true to his word, reluctantly agreed to explore alternative income streams. They started small, renting out the empty bunkhouse to hunters during season, selling some of Anna's handmade quilts that had been stored in the attic, offering weekend trail rides to visitors from Phoenix who wanted an authentic ranch experience. None of these efforts would save the ranch overnight, but they created breathing room, a little extra income to supplement the struggling cattle operation. More importantly, they gave Caleb something he hadn't had in years: hope. Lily thrived under Elena's gentle attention. The girl who had greeted her with suspicion now chattered freely over breakfast, proudly brought home schoolwork to show Elena, and even began to help with Mateo, delighting in his increasing responsiveness as he approached 7 months. He smiled at me, she announced triumphantly one afternoon, when Elena had allowed her to sit beside Mateo on a blanket in the shade of the front porch. A real smile, not a gas smile. Elena laughed, looking up from the mending she was doing. He likes you. You're very good with him. Lily beamed with pride. Dad says I have a gentle touch, like Mom did. Her smile dimmed slightly. I don't remember a lot about her anymore. Just little things. That's normal, Elena assured her. But those little things are precious. You should write them down so you don't forget. Would you help me? Lily asked hesitantly. Dad doesn't like talking about Mom much. I think it makes him too sad. Of course I'll help you, Elena promised. We could make a memory book, with stories and maybe some photos. Lily's face lit up. There's a box of photos in Dad's closet. He never looks at them, but I do sometimes when he's out working. That weekend, while Caleb was meeting with a potential client for the trail rides, Elena and Lily spread photographs across the living room floor. Mateo watched from his blanket, occasionally reaching for the colorful images. This is from their wedding, Lily explained, holding up a slightly faded photograph of a younger, smiling Caleb with a beautiful dark-haired woman. Mom made her own dress. Grandma says she could sew anything. Elena studied the photo, taking in Anna Reeves' vibrant smile, the way she looked at Caleb with unmistakable love. She was beautiful, she said softly. You have her smile. Lily traced her mother's face with a small finger. Dad says I have her spirit too. He means I'm stubborn. Elena laughed. I think he means you're strong. Like she must have been. They worked through the afternoon, organizing photos and writing down Lily's memories on colorful paper. Elena was careful to keep the focus on celebrating Anna rather than dwelling on her absence, guiding Lily toward happy memories while acknowledging the sadness that sometimes surfaced. When Caleb returned, he stopped short in the doorway, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene. Photographs of his late wife spread across the floor, his daughter laughing as she shared stories with Elena. "Lily," he said, his voice tight. "What are you doing with those?" The girl looked up, her smile faltering at her father's tone. "Elena's helping me make a memory book about Mom, so I don't forget the stories." Elena stood quickly. "I'm sorry, we should have asked first. Lily mentioned wanting to remember more about her mother, and I thought, it's fine." Caleb cut her off, but his rigid posture suggested otherwise. "Just put them back when you're done." He turned and walked out, the screen door slamming behind him. "He's mad," Lily whispered, her earlier happiness evaporating. "No, honey," Elena reassured her, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. "He's just surprised." Seeing these photos unexpectedly might have brought back a lot of feelings. Should we put them away? Elena considered the question, looking at the half-finished memory book and Lily's crestfallen expression. "No," she decided. "We'll finish what we started. Your dad will understand once he has a chance to think about it." She found Caleb later that evening in the barn, methodically cleaning tack with the focused attention of a man avoiding his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, waiting to be acknowledged, Mateo sleeping against her shoulder after his evening bottle. "I crossed a line," she said when he finally looked up. "I should have asked before bringing out Anna's photographs." Caleb set down the saddle soap, wiping his hands on a rag. "It's not that. Lily has every right to those memories." He hesitated. "It was seeing you there, in my living room, surrounded by pictures of my wife, helping my daughter remember someone you never knew. It was like worlds colliding." Elena understood then. It wasn't anger she'd witnessed, but disorientation, the past and present merging in ways he wasn't prepared for. "Lily needs to talk about her mother," she said gently. "Not to replace her or diminish her memory, but to keep it alive in healthy ways." "I know," he admitted. "I've never been good at that part, the emotional part. Anna was the one who knew how to talk about feelings." "It's not too late to learn," Elena suggested. "Lily treasures every story you share about her mother, even the small ones." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, his hands working the rag between them. "Lily seems happier lately. Since you came." "She's a remarkable child," Elena said honestly. "Smart, resilient. She just needs consistency." "Like you said Mateo needs," Caleb observed, looking at the sleeping baby. "Stability." Elena nodded, feeling a strange tightness in her chest at the parallel. "Children are surprisingly adaptable, but they need to feel secure. To know the ground beneath them won't suddenly disappear. You've brought that back to this house," Caleb said quietly. "Order. Predictability. Even a bit of hope." "I've only been here a month," Elena reminded him, though it sometimes felt like longer. The small apartment behind the bunkhouse had quickly become more of a home than anywhere she'd lived since Diego's death. "A month can change a lot," Caleb said, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "Thank you. For the books, for Lily, for everything." "You gave us a chance when we needed one most," Elena replied, her voice catching slightly. "I'm just returning the favor." Something shifted between them in that moment. An acknowledgement of mutual respect that might, given time, grow into something more. Neither of them was ready to name it, to risk the fragile balance they had achieved, but it hung in the air between them like promise. "The memory book was a good idea," Caleb said finally, breaking the tension. Maybe I could help." "There are stories only I can tell." Elena smiled, relief, and something warmer flooding through her. "Lily would love that. We both would." As they walked back to the house together through the gathering twilight, Elena felt Mateo stir against her. his small hand clutching at her shirt in sleep. Behind them, the barn door stood open, warm light spilling out into the darkness. Ahead, the ranch house windows glowed golden, Lily's silhouette visible as she waited for their return. Not her home. Not yet. But for the first time since Diego's death, Elena allowed herself to imagine a future beyond mere survival. A future where Mateo might grow up on this land, where the dry creek might one day flow again, where grief might slowly transform into something new and unexpected. One day at a time, she whispered to herself, an echo of what Diego used to say when the future seemed overwhelming. For tonight, that was enough. The 2-month mark of Elena's arrival at Reeves Ranch passed with little fanfare, but significant change. The financial ledgers now balanced properly, showing modest improvement with their diversified income streams. The house had regained a sense of order, meals appeared regularly on the table, and most noticeably, Lily had stopped missing the school bus. Mateo, now approaching 8 months, had mastered sitting up on his own and had recently discovered the joy of making raspberry sounds with his lips, much to Lily's delight. His dark eyes, so like Diego's, tracked movement across rooms, and his smile came readily for those in his expanding circle of trust. On a crisp October morning, Elena sat at the kitchen table reviewing the latest bank statement while Mateo played with wooden spoons on a blanket nearby. The sound of boots on the porch announced Caleb's arrival before he appeared in the doorway, his expression uncharacteristically animated. "It rained in the hills last night," he announced without preamble. "Flash flood coming down through the canyon." Creeks flowing again. Elena looked up, immediately understanding the significance. "Lily's creek? The one she showed me?" Caleb nodded, a rare smile transforming his weathered face. "Won't last more than a day or two, but I thought she might want to see it before school. If you're willing to drive her in afterward." "Of course," Elena said, already rising to find Lily, who was finishing getting dressed. "She'll be thrilled." Minutes later, they piled into Caleb's truck. Lily practically vibrating with excitement, Elena with Mateo secured against her in a sling, and Caleb driving with uncharacteristic speed down the bumpy ranch road. They heard it before they saw it, the unmistakable sound of running water in a landscape where such sounds had become rare. Rounding a bend, the dry creek bed Lily had shown Elena on her first tour now flowed with muddy, rushing water, cutting a path through the parched earth like a miracle. "It's back!" Lily exclaimed, scrambling out of the truck before it had fully stopped. "Dad, look! The water came back." Caleb followed more sedately, but Elena could see the wonder in his eyes too, the boyish delight temporarily replacing his usual stoic demeanor. "Told you it would," he said, resting a hand on Lily's shoulder as they watched the water surge past. "Mom would have loved this," Lily said softly. Instead of tensing at the mention of Anna, as he might have done months ago, Caleb nodded. "She always said the creek had its own schedule. That we just had to be patient." Elena stood slightly apart, giving father and daughter this moment together, but Lily waved her over. "Elena, come see! Remember what you said about things underground waiting to come back?" Elena approached, adjusting Mateo in his sling. "I remember," she said, smiling at the vindication in Lily's voice. "Nature has its own way of surprising us. Sometimes things that seem gone forever do come back," Lily announced with the wisdom of a child who has just had a fundamental belief confirmed. "You were right." Elena met Caleb's eyes over Lily's head, finding something warm and appreciative in his gaze, something that made her heart beat a little faster. The moment was broken by Mateo's excited squeal as he spotted a butterfly hovering near the water's edge. His chubby arms reached toward it, almost unbalancing Elena. "Careful there, partner," Caleb said, automatically reaching out to steady them both, his hand warm on Elena's elbow. The casual touch lingered a moment longer than necessary, and when he pulled away, Elena found herself missing the contact. Lily was oblivious to the adult's momentary tension, already splashing at the creek's edge, despite Caleb's half-hearted warnings about her school clothes. "Can we come back after school? Will it still be here?" "Should be," Caleb assured her. "Might not be running as strong, but the water will take a while to drain through." "Promise we'll come back?" Lily pressed, suddenly anxious that she might miss this rare phenomenon. "Promise," Elena found herself saying, then glanced at Caleb to make sure she hadn't overstepped. He nodded his agreement, and something in Elena's chest loosened at this small acknowledgement of her place in their daily decisions. After Lily had been delivered to school, 10 minutes late but with a note explaining the special circumstances, Caleb and Elena found themselves alone in the truck with Mateo, who had fallen asleep after the excitement. "I should get back to work," Caleb said, though he made no move to start the engine. "Got fences need mending in the north pasture." "And I should finish the monthly accounts," Elena agreed, equally reluctant to end this unexpected interlude in their routine. Caleb turned to face her, his expression serious. "Trial period's almost up. 3 months, we said." Elena's heart stuttered. She'd been so caught up in the daily rhythm of ranch life that she'd almost forgotten their original agreement had an expiration date. "Yes, I suppose it is." "Been thinking," Caleb continued, his fingers tapping nervously on the steering wheel. "Ranch is doing better with you here. Books are straight for the first time in years. House feels like a home again." He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Lily's happier. I'm happier too." Elena waited, hardly daring to breathe, to hope. "I'd like you to stay," he said finally. "Not for another 3 months. Permanently. Or at least as permanent as you want it to be." "As your housekeeper?" Elena asked carefully, needing to be clear about what he was offering. Caleb met her eyes directly. "As whatever you want to be. To us. To me." The implication hung in the air between them, not a declaration of love, not yet, but an acknowledgement of possibility. Of a door opening to something neither of them had expected to find again. "I'd like that," Elena said softly, her voice steadier than she felt. "For Mateo and me to stay." The relief in Caleb's face was palpable. "Good. That's good." They drove back to the ranch in a different kind of silence than before. One charged with unspoken emotions and new possibilities. As they pulled up to the house, Caleb cleared his throat awkwardly. "About the apartment," he began. "It's not much of a space for the long term. If you're staying, maybe we should think about, well, there's plenty of room in the main house. For both of you." Elena looked at him, understanding the significance of what he was suggesting. "That's a big step, Caleb." "Too big?" he asked, vulnerability evident in his usually confident voice. "Not too big," she assured him. "Just one we should take carefully. For Lily's sake, and for Mateo's, and our own." He nodded, accepting her wisdom. "One step at a time, then." "One step at a time," she agreed, smiling at the relief in his eyes. That evening, after dinner, Elena helped Lily with her homework, while Caleb made phone calls in the office. Mateo played contentedly in a makeshift playpen Caleb had constructed from an old wooden gate, occasionally babbling nonsense syllables that echoed through the kitchen. "Dad seems different today," Lily observed, looking up from her spelling worksheet. "Like he's nervous about something." Elena felt a blush creep up her neck. "Does he? I haven't noticed." Lily gave her a look far too knowing for an 8-year-old. "He changed his shirt twice before dinner. And he keeps looking at you when you're not watching." "Well," Elena said, struggling to maintain her composure, "grown-ups sometimes have a lot on their minds." "Are you going to leave soon?" Lily asked abruptly, her pencil pausing over half-completed words. "Your 3 months is almost up." "Dad told me not to count days, but I did anyway." Elena's heart constricted at the worry in the child's voice. "Actually, your dad asked me to stay. Permanently. If that's all right with you." Lily's face transformed with joy, but almost immediately clouded with suspicion. "In the apartment?" "For now," Elena said carefully, "but maybe someday. We'll see about other arrangements." Lily studied her with those penetrating blue eyes. "You mean like moving into the house? With us? Would that bother you?" Elena asked gently. "If Mateo and I were here all the time?" Lily considered this seriously, tapping her pencil against her chin. "Would you be like my new mom?" The directness of the question took Elena's breath away. No one could replace your mom, Lily. She'll always be your mother, no matter what happens. But you could be something else? Lily pressed, working through the concept. Like how Samantha at school has a stepmom and a real mom in heaven? Elena nodded, choosing her words carefully. Something like that. But only if you're comfortable with it. And only if it's what your dad wants too. And only if we all agree it's what's best for everyone. I think it would be good, Lily decided after a moment's consideration. Dad smiles more when you're around. And I like having Mateo here. It's like having a baby brother. The casual acceptance of this potential new reality, coming from the child who had once regarded her with such suspicion, brought tears to Elena's eyes. Thank you, Lily. That means a lot to me. Later that night, after both children were asleep, Mateo in his crib in the apartment, Lily in her bedroom in the main house, Elena found herself walking toward the creek again. The moon was nearly full, casting enough light to follow the path without a flashlight. She needed space to think, to process the day's developments. Caleb's invitation represented everything she had lost hope of finding again after Diego's death. Security, connection, a future beyond mere survival. It terrified her as much as it thrilled her. The sound of the creek guided her forward, louder in the quiet night than it had been during the day. As she rounded the final bend, she was startled to find Caleb already there, sitting on a large rock beside the flowing water. He looked up at her approach, unsurprised. "Thought you might come back here." "How did you know?" she asked, joining him on the rock, careful to leave space between them. "Seemed like a night for thinking," he said simply. "This is where I come to think." They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the water carve its path through the dry land. "I meant what I said earlier," Caleb finally said. "About wanting you to stay. But I know it's complicated." Elena nodded, watching the moonlight play on the rippling surface of the creek. "I want to stay," she admitted. "But I'm scared, Caleb. What if we're moving too fast? What if we're just two lonely people grabbing onto each other out of convenience? Is that what you think this is?" He asked quietly. "Convenience?" She shook her head, unable to lie to him or to herself. "No, it's more than that. But it scares me how quickly it happened. How much I've come to care for you and Lily. How much it would hurt to lose this if it doesn't work out." "Scared me too," Caleb admitted, surprising her with his candor. "After Anna died, I figured that part of my life was over. Focused on Lily, on keeping the ranch going. Didn't expect to feel this way again." He turned to face her, his expression visible in the moonlight. "Didn't expect you." "I didn't expect you either," Elena said softly. "After Diego, I was just trying to survive. To keep Mateo safe and fed, I didn't think beyond the next day, the next meal. And now? Now I find myself thinking about next month, next year, watching Mateo take his first steps in your living room, helping Lily with middle school homework, seeing if we can make the ranch profitable again." She took a deep breath. "Building something new. Together." Caleb's hand found hers in the darkness, his calloused fingers interlacing with her own. "I'd like that. All of it." "One step at a time," Elena reminded him. But she didn't pull her hand away. "Water's still flowing," Caleb observed, nodding toward the creek. "Stronger than I expected. Might last a week instead of a day." "A good sign," Elena suggested. "A very good sign," Caleb agreed, squeezing her hand gently. The next month brought gradual changes to Reeves Ranch. Elena and Mateo began spending more time in the main house, with Mateo's toys slowly migrating to a corner of the living room. Meals became a family affair, with Caleb making a point to be home for dinner most nights, and Lily thriving under the consistent attention of two adults. The creek, true to Caleb's prediction, flowed for nearly 2 weeks before gradually receding. But unlike previous years, the brief return of water had sparked something in the land. Wildflower seeds, long dormant, began to germinate along the creek bed, promising spring blooms where there had been only dust. November brought cooler temperatures and preparations for Thanksgiving. The ranch's financial situation, while still precarious, had stabilized enough that they could plan a modest holiday celebration, their first as this new, undefined family unit. Elena was in the kitchen, reviewing recipes for traditional dishes Diego's mother had taught her when the phone rang. Caleb was out working, so she answered with the now familiar greeting. Reeves Ranch, Elena speaking. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, a woman, her tone professional, and slightly hurried. Hello, I'm calling for Elena Bennett. This is Margaret Collins from the Arizona Department of Economic Security. Elena's heart rate instantly accelerated. This is Elena. Ms. Bennett, I'm following up on the application you submitted in June for emergency assistance and employment services. I apologize for the delay. Your file was misplaced during a system transition. Elena struggled to remember those desperate days after being evicted, applying for any program that might help her and Mateo survive. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Ms. Bennett, are you still there? Yes, I'm here, Elena managed. It's just, that was several months ago. My situation has changed. I understand, Ms. Collins said. However, I wanted to inform you that you've been approved for the Transitional Employment Program, which includes placement assistance and a stipend for education completion. According to your file, you were 3 credits shy of completing your accounting degree? That's right, Elena confirmed, her mind racing. We have an opening with an accounting firm in Phoenix participating in our work-study program. They would provide employment while you complete your remaining credits at ASU. The position comes with health benefits and childcare assistance. Elena gripped the phone tighter, her thoughts whirling. The opportunity she had dreamed of before Diego's death, stable employment, benefits, a chance to finish her degree, was suddenly within reach again. Ms. Bennett, are you interested in pursuing this opportunity? I should mention that the position starts in January, so you would have time to make arrangements. Can I have some time to think about it? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course. The offer will remain open until December 1st. Please call me at this number when you've made your decision. After hanging up, Elena sank into a kitchen chair, the list of Thanksgiving recipes forgotten. Phoenix was 3 hours away, too far to commute, which would mean leaving the ranch, leaving Lily, leaving Caleb. But it also meant security for Mateo, health insurance, a completed degree that would ensure she could always provide for him. It meant independence, not having to rely on Caleb's generosity or the uncertain future of a struggling ranch. She was still sitting there, lost in thought, when Lily burst through the door after school. Elena, guess what? We're doing a Thanksgiving play, and I get to be the narrator because Mrs. Thompson says I have the best reading voice, and Dad has to come see it next Tuesday, and… The girl stopped abruptly, noticing Elena's expression. What's wrong? Is Mateo sick? Elena forced a smile. No, honey, Mateo's fine. He's napping. I just received some unexpected news. Nothing for you to worry about. Lily regarded her skeptically but was quickly distracted by the sight of cookbook pages spread across the table. Are you planning Thanksgiving? Can we have pumpkin pie? And those spicy potatoes you made last week? Of course, Elena assured her, pushing aside her confusion to focus on Lily's excitement. Why don't you help me make a shopping list? That evening, after Lily was in bed, Elena finally told Caleb about the phone call. They sat at the kitchen table, mugs of coffee between them, the house quiet save for the occasional creak of the old timbers settling. Caleb listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly guarded as she explained the opportunity in Phoenix. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. Sounds like what you've been working toward, he finally said, his voice carefully neutral. Degree, stable job, benefits. It is, Elena acknowledged. Or it was, before. She gestured vaguely, encompassing the ranch, their evolving relationship, the life they had begun to build together. Before us, Caleb finished for her. Yes. Caleb stared into his coffee mug, his knuckles white around the handle. I can't offer you what Phoenix can. Ranch is still on shaky ground. No guarantees here. "This isn't about guarantees, Caleb," Elena said softly. "Isn't it?" He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. "You came here looking for stability for Mateo. This job offers that. Security, education, a future that doesn't depend on rainfall and cattle prices." "But it's not just about Mateo anymore," Elena insisted. "It's about Lily, too. And you. And what we've started to build here." Caleb's expression softened slightly. "I won't hold you back, Elena. Won't ask you to sacrifice Mateo's future for us. For me." "What about our future?" Elena pressed, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Don't I get a say in that, too?" "Of course you do," he said, turning his palm to clasp her fingers. "Just want you to be sure. Don't want you waking up a year from now, regretting what you gave up." "And what if I go to Phoenix and regret leaving what we might have had here?" Elena countered. "There's risk either way, Caleb." He had no answer for that, and they sat in silence, hands joined across the table, each lost in their own thoughts. Over the next week, Elena's decision weighed on her constantly. She found herself studying Lily's face at dinner, memorizing the way Caleb's eyes crinkled when he smiled, wondering if she could really leave this place that had become home in such a short time. Thanksgiving arrived crisp and clear, the morning frost glittering on the remaining puddles along the creek bed. Elena woke early to begin cooking, finding Caleb already in the kitchen, attempting to prepare coffee with one hand while holding a fussing Mateo in the other. "Someone woke up early and was calling for you," he explained, passing the baby to Elena with evident relief. "Thought I'd let you sleep a bit longer." The domesticity of the moment, Caleb in the kitchen at dawn, caring for her son while she slept, made Elena's heart constrict. These were the moments she would miss. Elena leaned against him, grateful once again for this man who understood the importance of honoring the past while building a future. "They'll treasure this someday, almost as much as I treasure you for thinking of it." Caleb wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Had a lot of time to think about what matters those years after Anna died. Thought I was just existing for Lily's sake, but now I realize I was waiting. Not knowing it, but waiting all the same." "For what?" Elena asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "For the chance to be whole again," Caleb said simply. "For you and Mateo to find your way here?" Elena closed the memory box gently, setting it back on the dresser where the children could see it but not yet reach it. "I used to think losing Diego was the end of my story," she mused. "Now I understand it was just the closing of one chapter before another could begin." "Not everyone gets a second chapter," Caleb observed. "We're the lucky ones." "The determined ones," Elena corrected with a smile. "The ones who kept walking forward even when the path disappeared beneath our feet." Spring returned again to Reeves Ranch, bringing with it the second anniversary of Elena and Mateo's arrival. The changes were evident everywhere, in the repaired fences and freshly painted barn, in the thriving vegetable garden Elena had resurrected from Anna's overgrown plot, in the steady flow of visitors who came for trail rides and left with appreciation for the working ranch Caleb had preserved against all odds. But the most profound changes were in the family itself. Lily, now 10, had blossomed under the stability of their blended household, excelling in school and developing a passion for photography that Elena enthusiastically encouraged. Mateo, at 2.5, was speaking in complete sentences, many of them mimicking his adored big sister. The adoption papers for both children had been finalized just after Christmas, a gift they had given each other, ensuring that no matter what the future held, their family bonds were legally recognized and protected. One warm April evening, as the sun cast long shadows across the ranch yard, Elena found herself alone at the creek. The water flowed clear and steady now, its course slightly altered from the old dry bed but somehow more natural in its new path. She heard footsteps approaching and turned to find Caleb walking toward her, Mateo on his shoulders and Lily skipping alongside, all three of them returning from checking on a new calf born that morning. "Mama!" Mateo called, waving excitedly from his perch. "Baby cow says moo!" "Does she now?" Elena laughed, holding out her arms as Caleb swung the toddler down. "And did you say moo back to her?" Mateo nodded emphatically, then proceeded to demonstrate his best cow impression, sending Lily into fits of giggles. "He's been doing that the whole way back," she informed Elena with the long-suffering air of an older sibling. "Dad says he might have a future in animal husbandry." "Did Dad use those exact words?" Elena asked, raising an eyebrow at Caleb, who shrugged innocently. "I might have said something about him being a natural with the livestock," he admitted. "The rest is Lily's vocabulary showing off." Lily beamed at the implied compliment, then noticed a butterfly near the water's edge and darted off to investigate, Mateo toddling determinedly after her. Caleb slipped an arm around Elena's waist as they watched the children explore. "Happy anniversary," he said softly. 2 years ago today you walked into Donna's diner looking for work." Elena leaned into his embrace, surprised he had remembered the exact date. 2 years. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. "In some ways it was," Caleb observed. "We were different people then." Elena nodded, thinking of the desperate young widow who had begged for any job that might feed her child, and the grim, isolated rancher who had offered her shelter. "We were broken," she said quietly. "Both of us, in different ways." "And now?" Caleb prompted, his eyes on the children but his attention fully on her. Elena watched as Lily patiently showed Mateo how to cup his hands to catch water from the creek, the little boy's face alight with wonder as the liquid slipped through his fingers. "Now we're whole again," she answered. "Not the same as before. Different, with scars and memories and lessons learned the hard way. But whole." Caleb nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "That day at Donna's, when you stood there holding Mateo asking for work with your chin up despite everything, I recognized something in you." "What was that?" "The same thing I saw in the mirror every morning," he said simply. "Someone determined to keep going, no matter what. Someone who put their child's needs above their own pride." "I was terrified," Elena admitted. "I had no idea what I was going to do if you hadn't offered us a place." "But you would have figured something out," Caleb said with certainty. "That's who you are. Who we both are. Survivors." "More than survivors now," Elena corrected gently. "We're builders, creating something new from what remained after the storms passed." Lily called to them then, eager to show off a small frog she had discovered near the creek bank. As they walked hand in hand to join their children, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Not just the physical distance from that desperate day in Copper Creek, but the emotional terrain they had traversed together. From 2 broken families to one whole one. From grief to joy. From mere survival to a life rich with purpose and connection. The Arizona sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the ranch in gold and amber light. In the distance, cattle grazed contentedly on pastures that had recovered from the drought. The old ranch house stood solid and welcoming, its weathered timbers holding the stories of generations, including, now, their own. "This is what healing looks like," Elena thought as Mateo ran back to her, arms outstretched for her to lift him. Not the absence of scars, but the presence of new growth around them. Not forgetting the past, but allowing it to become the foundation upon which something beautiful could be built. As they walked back toward the house together, Lily chattering about the frog habitat she wanted to create, Mateo secure in Elena's arms, Caleb's hand warm in hers. Elena remembered his words from that first day, spoken with gruff kindness to a desperate stranger. "Stay. This little one needs stability." What neither of them had known then was how much they all needed each other. Not just stability, but connection. The chance to discover that family wasn't only defined by blood or birth, but by choice. By showing up, day after day. By remaining present through difficulties and celebrations alike. By staying, even when the path forward wasn't clear. Trusting that together, they could find their way. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.